Growing up in the remote town of Granger's Hollow, I often heard stories about the woods, tales of strange sounds, mysterious figures darting between trees, and footprints too large to belong to any known animal. But like many teenagers, I brushed them off as local folklore, something to scare kids into staying close to home. It wasn't until one crisp autumn night, just a month before my 18th birthday, that I realized the stories might hold a kernel of truth. It was a Friday night, and my friends and I had gathered at Jake's place. His parents were out of town, so we decided to make the most of it. Snacks, music, and a bonfire in the backyard. There were 6 of us: me, Jake, Lisa, Matt, Ellie, and Sarah. We'd known each other for years, and our friendships felt as solid as the old oaks that surrounded the town. The night was clear, the sky dotted with stars, and the bonfire crackled with a comforting warmth. We sat around it, talking and laughing, when Jake suggested we play Truth or Dare. It was harmless fun at first. Silly questions, minor dares, but then Matt dared me to go into the woods and bring back something interesting. "You've got 5 minutes," he said with a grin, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "Don't keep us waiting." I laughed, trying to hide my unease. The woods near Jake's house had always given me the creeps, even in daylight. They were dense and dark, with tangled underbrush and winding paths that seemed to lead nowhere. But I didn't want to look like a coward, so I grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the tree line. The air grew colder as I entered the woods, the canopy above blocking out much of the starlight. I could still hear my friends' voices and the crackling of the bonfire, but they grew fainter with each step. I clicked on the flashlight and scanned the ground, looking for anything that might count as interesting. A few minutes passed, and I found nothing but fallen branches and leaves. I was about to turn back when I heard a noise, a rustling in the bushes to my left. I swung the flashlight in that direction, expecting to see a raccoon or a squirrel, but there was nothing there. Just silence. I took a deep breath and continued walking, trying to ignore the growing sense of unease. The rustling came again, this time from behind me. I spun around, flashlight pointed into the darkness, but saw nothing. The air felt heavy, as if the woods were holding their breath, watching my every move. I quickened my pace, heading back toward the bonfire. I didn't care if I came back empty-handed. I just wanted to get out of there. But as I walked, the rustling grew louder, like something was moving through the underbrush, following me. I could hear leaves crunching, branches snapping, and the sound of something breathing heavily. I broke into a run, my heart pounding in my chest. The rustling was right behind me, growing faster, more aggressive. I could hear something crashing through the woods, something big, too big to be an animal. I didn't dare look back, I just kept running, the flashlight bouncing in my hand, the beam dancing across the trees. I burst out of the woods, nearly tripping over a fallen log, and sprinted toward the bonfire. My friends looked up in surprise, their laughter fading as they saw the panic in my eyes. I collapsed onto the grass, gasping for breath, the flashlight rolling out of my hand. "What happened?" Jake asked, his voice filled with concern. I don't know," I stammered, trying to catch my breath. Something was following me. The others looked at each other, a mix of confusion and worry on their faces. They knew I wasn't the type to scare easily, and my reaction was enough to make them uneasy. Jake grabbed his flashlight and stood up. "Let's check it out," he said, his bravado masking the fear in his voice. Maybe it was a deer or something. The others joined him, each grabbing a flashlight and heading toward the woods. I stayed behind, too shaken to follow. I listened as their footsteps faded into the trees, their voices growing distant. For a moment, I was alone by the bonfire, the darkness pressing in from all sides. Then I heard it again. The rustling in the woods, followed by a low growl. It was faint, but it sent shivers down my spine. It wasn't the growl of a bear or a wolf. It was deeper, more guttural, like something from a nightmare. I grabbed the flashlight and pointed it toward the tree line, but I saw nothing. I called out to my friends, my voice echoing through the night. There was no response. Just silence, followed by more rustling and another growl, this time closer. I backed away from the woods, my hands trembling, the flashlight shaking in my grip. Whatever was out there, it wasn't something I wanted to meet. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an eternity before my friends returned. They were pale and shaken, their flashlights flickering. Jake looked at me, his eyes wide with fear. "We heard it too," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "That growl. What the hell was it?" None of us had an answer. We packed up our things and went back inside, locking the doors and windows. The rest of the night was tense, our conversations subdued, our nerves on edge. We didn't talk about what we'd heard or what might have been in the woods. It was as if speaking about it would make it real, and we weren't ready for that. The next day, I went back to the woods with Jake and his dad, a local hunter. We searched the area, and though he was accustomed to tracking all sorts of wildlife, what he found sent a chill through him. The footprints were large and irregular, almost like they belonged to some unknown creature, and the broken branches suggested a size and strength that couldn't be explained by any animal known to the area. Jake's dad, usually calm and collected, turned pale as he examined the signs. It was clear that whatever had followed me was unlike anything he had ever encountered. The memory of that night stayed with me long after I left Granger's Hollow. I still wonder what was in those woods, what was growling and following me through the trees. Was it an animal? Something else? I'll never know, and that uncertainty is what makes it so terrifying. To this day, I avoid dark woods and remote trails. I prefer the safety of city lights and busy streets. But sometimes when I'm alone at night, I hear that growl again, faint and distant, like a reminder that the unknown is always out there, waiting, watching, just beyond the edge of the light.